respected chair, Professor Chandrika, my panelists, and the leading scholars of a global nature, Professor Bhargava, and also the key person behind organizing this great intellectual event, Professor Ashok D'Souza, Professor Someshwar sir, and other leading scholars of our country, Professor Jivan Kumar sir, and all other faculty members, students who are sitting here. And this is the great opportunity. I consider this as a great opportunity to speak in front of all of you. This is the land belongs to the great reformer, Sri Basaveshwara. This land also belonged to the great revolutionary leader, one of the first rebellious women, as well as the great freedom fighter, Rani Channamma. So I take it as an honor to share my thoughts on one of the important intellectual themes about reason, republic, and rationality from the Ambedkar perspective. As my previous speakers, starting from Professor Bhargava to the current speaker, who have delineated on some of the important aspects of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and his contributions in the making of modern India as an egalitarian state and society. So, as a student of sociology, I would like to engage on certain important issues and challenges from the Ambedkar perspective in understanding the contemporary Indian society. As the organizers has asked me to speak on the Ambedkar's idea of equality, Ambedkar's idea of ideal society, I wish to place Dr. B.R. Ambedkar as a part of the historical conjecture as well as historical departure. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar represents the history of tradition and modernity. As a person who belonged to the family of soldiers in the colonial India, and that was the time the way the present-day Maharashtra underwent the highest form of oppression in the form of the Peshwa rulers, where the caste system was at the peak. Even the shadow of the body of the untouchables were considered as, even the shadow was considered as a polluted shadow. So that was the time in which Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, let's say, born. So therefore, I wish to submit that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was a product of historical crisis as well as historical opportunity. So as a crisis, as I mentioned, despite of a number of historical intellectual traditions, when we look at India, broadly we need to look at from two traditions. One is the Orthodox tradition, the second one is the heterodox tradition. Unfortunately, the Orthodox tradition is always known for defeating the heterodox school of thought. That's why scholars like Rabindranath Tagore and Amartya Sen were known for cultivating or celebrating the idea of India as a heterodox India. As we have witnessed at the time of Buddha or from the perspective of the Bhakti movement. So despite of multiple, let's say, historical, intellectual challenges, political movements, social reforms, but unfortunately all these reforms have become a reform, not a revolution. I think that's where we need to understand that India witnessed the great intellectual traditions, but as I wish to submit that, these traditions, though they have become part of the critical ideology, where people like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was very much inspired by the critical ideological tradition which was cultivated by the heterodox school of thought. But the point is, how to place Ambedkar as a great historical interlocutor. So this is where we need to understand that unlike the people of his generation, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was looking for a radical transformation in the polity as well as in the society. As a student of Buddha, as well as a follower of Mahatma Phule, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was looking for an alternative idea of India on some of the important progressive foundations, which primarily culminated from the Buddhist tradition as well as the French tradition. So what are these Ambedkar principles and what was he fighting for? So this is where, as Professor Bhargava and number of scholars have mentioned, that Indian society was primarily organized on the principles of segmental division of society. So where, as my previous speaker has rightly mentioned, each caste is like a republic, especially in the case of the untouchables or the present day Dalits, who are primarily negated the space in the village. So as in South India, as all of us are aware, we always talk about the concept called Uru Vada. So the idea of Uru primarily represents the village, whereas the Vada primarily represents the hamlet. So what is the connection between the Uru and Vada? So I always feel that this caste system is not mere the segmental division of society on the notion of the purity and pollution, if I use the sociological language, but also this primarily organized on the principle of geographical separation. So though the geographical separation is a matter of, let's say, 500 meters to half kilometer or kilometer or 2 kilometers is based on the degree of pollution followed by the number of villages in different regions. But the point is, the people of the hamlet were known for following the concept of waiting for visa. That means these people who are part of the Vada were not allowed to be part of the republic called the village republic. So therefore, when you're talking about the idea of India as a collection of the villages, whether the Dalits are part of the village republic or not. So I argue that the Dalits were not part of the notion of the village republic. They are out of the village. So those scholars like M.N. Srinivas who primarily argued that, though there is a sense of village solidarity which was very much exhibited from the perspective of division of laborers. As a typical functional scholars, as a typical structural scholars, like let's say G.S. Gure, M.N. Srinivas, Louis Dumont, these are scholars who are known for using this kind of structural functionalist approaches. But Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, caste system is not merely a division of labor, rather a division of labors. So this is where I wish to invoke the writings of the famous American anthropologist named John P. Mencher, Gail Ombet. These are the great American anthropologists who are known for discovering the great intellectual history of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Ambedkar's idea of caste system or Ambedkar's idea of egalitarian tradition. So this is where I wish to, let's say, criticize that the Indian sociologists and anthropologists have failed to recognize the epistemology as well as the methodology of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So I think that's where we need to understand the great contributions of some of the best women Western social scientists, quote unquote women Western scientists. That means the entire subaltern anthropology, subaltern sociology were primarily developed by the American as well as the British women anthropologists and sociologists. So therefore, the point is that the Indian sociological community have failed to recognize the contributions of Ambedkar. So now the point is, Ambedkar as a student was not even allowed to even sit in the classroom, but he rose to the level of the great intellectual of our country by going to Columbia University, by going to London School of Economics. But so the point is that when he came back, right, during his lifetime, though he faced a number of issues and challenges with reference to his social origin, he was not allowed to enjoy the equal status on par with others. But remember, after the death of Ambedkar, most of the educational institutions, most of the universities in India are named after Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So the point I'm trying to say here is that when you talk about the history of, when you talk about the anthropology of caste, that is caste as a system humiliates the people from the subaltern communities on day-to-day basis, on time to time. So that means the body is subjected to multiple forms of, let's say, exclusion, deprivations, and system of injustice. But the point is, it is because of education, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar came to that level. So another important point I wish to argue that Ambedkar was not simply became a mere spectator during his lifetime. Ambedkar was known for engaging with number of political, social, and cultural, as well as the material conditions of his life. So what are the, let's say, material conditions of life and why that's important even now? Dr. B.R. Ambedkar fought for there's the right to water. So though water is one of the important source of the human life, but the Dalits were denied the right to water because of their caste. So therefore, the famous Mahatma movement was known for, say, articulating the material conditions of Dalits, and that's how Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was known for creating an alternative political space by taking the material aspects of human life. So therefore, that's where I wish to argue that Ambedkar is very much nearer to the materialist understanding of India. Right? So that was one of the important points. So another important point we need to understand is that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar during his lifetime, he also recognized the importance of articulating the agenda of the Dalits, articulating the agenda of the marginal sections of the society in general and Dalits in particular. If you try to recall, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar almost 100 years ago, he started a newspaper titled The Mook Naik. The Mook Naik. So that primarily implies that Ambedkar was very much keen to represent the intellectual. He was very much keen to reflect the socio-economic conditions of the people. He was also very much keen to reflect on the political aspirations of these marginal sections of the society of India. So therefore, the point is that Ambedkar was a keen observer as well as keen interlocutor. He was a keen political fighter, both from the perspective of the constitutional sense as well as from the perspective of the intellectual state apparatus, if I quote people like Louis Althusser. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, even at the time of when India about to get independence, was also known for demanding for the separate political electorate for the people of the margin. So therefore, the point is that Ambedkar was very much aware of the idea of political equality versus the idea of the social equality. As the marginal sections of the society, especially Dalits, were not treated even at a partial level, so therefore Ambedkar was very much aware that the Dalits are not going to be recognized by the mainstream society as an equal. So therefore Ambedkar was advocating for the separate electorate. But that was not materialized. But one of the important latent outcome of the separate electorate is reservations in political bodies. So the idea of reservations in the political bodies definitely opened a space for the margins of the margins. Remember, these are the people who are referred as the untouchable. We are unseeable, we are referred as untouched communities. But first time they got a chance to represent in the assemblies, they got a chance to represent in the parliament. So therefore, the Ambedkar vision was primarily worked in a different form with reference to political participation. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar played very, very important role after independence, as all of you are aware, that the Constitution has become the guiding force of the entire Indian society. So this is where I wish to argue that despite of 1.4 billion population, though when we look at the idea of India, despite of structural problems and functional limitations with reference to state and state apparatus, when you compare with our neighboring countries and compare with even the so-called developed countries, I can definitely argue that the idea of India or the spirit of India is very much retained because of Ambedkar's notion of the legal framework as well as the moral framework. So this is where, dear friends, we need to understand the visionary outlook of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar with reference to the idea of a constitution. So now, as all of us are aware that Ambedkar was a victim of the social hierarchy